I feel like this immense pregnant pause happening right now. And some kind of delayed response. Kind of the way I feel about most of America right now. There's like a delayed response. And what is going on right now? I'm feeling like that took like 27 minutes to just get live. I don't even understand that. Welcome, everyone, to the Everest Effect. I am your host, Robert Everest. It's another day of lockdowns in America. So bravo to all of you that are really enjoying this moment at home, and that Grubhub closes early and all of our delivery services are closing early. And for all those night owls that used to love to go outside and de-energize and stare at the moon and just kind of be human and walk around and breathe the fresh air. Now we're under lockdown and we're terrified. We're so scared. What's going to happen to us if we go outside? It's like this giant virus wolf is going to come up out of the sewers of the sidewalk and they're going to come and get you, which makes me think, really, what would happen if we challenged the very thought of what the TikTok world tells us to do and think? What if we did that? That would be an interesting way to handle your life. Some would call it anarchy. Some would say that's an anarchist way to behave. You know, you should really be more concerned about what's happening in America. Do you have any idea how many people are dying from COVID-19? You know, the truth of the matter is there's a lot of unfortunate souls out there that are sick. And some of them are getting cared for and some of them are recovering very fast. But when I hear those terms like time to lock down again, it makes me wonder why. If I was outside, say, walking my dog, there's a famous podcaster. I can't think of his name right now. I apologize. But I think I just watched something or a clip or somebody sent me an email or something like that where it showed this guy apologizing to the public, probably a little tongue-in-cheek, but he was apologizing to the public for violating the stay-at-home order and taking his dog on a walk. If that is the type of America that we want to live in, then that means that we are in a state of fear. And when you're in a state of fear, it does not allow you the room to be able to expand. And so today's episode is kind of why I felt this was a great subject. There's a lot of people that are not just suffering from COVID-19. This word is so overused, I think I'll throw up if I hear the term COVID-19 used 27 more times in 18 different ways and a bazillion commercials trying to show us just how depressing, how sad, how we're all in this together. The faces of people wearing the shields and the face masks. And, you know, I am all for the first responders and people on the front lines and people that really are doing their best to control something that we weren't ready for, we don't know anything about, and we're just still learning. But slamming it down our throats every single day, every waking moment, every time you turn on the news, which is a strongly worded narrative based on what that news station's agenda is. Okay, that's something that I think you guys are smart enough. The American public, you're pretty savvy. So you are smart enough, as far as I'm concerned, to recognize that there has to be a filter that's there. You know, that's why, you know, fantastic guys like other podcasters like Joe Rogan, these are guys that I really admire, although my career didn't lead me to this place at first. This became an option when COVID-19 locked everybody down. I used to do what I'm doing right now with corporations, with individuals, with a direct sales team. I use this on set of movies. I used it in a variety of ways, the training that I had on achieving the most out of life. Let's sum it kind of like that. So, but when I look at guys like Joe Rogan, good for you, man. I admire the fact that you are willing to go on a limb at certain places. Of course, there's still going to be some degree of humility and moral compass as a business person, as a professional, that you must adhere to, that you should use in order for you to succeed. It's just a script of how to operate. It's like a business manual. If you were to take over, let's say, a McDonald's or some other fast food chain, and you bought a franchise, there's a really good chance they would give you an operations manual. So what does that mean? Does that mean, let me go my own way? Let me be the Wild West? Let me just shoot in all directions? Sometimes that's very helpful to be that expansive, to be that awesome, that you can fire your guns ablazing without thinking of any consequence, without worrying whether or not you weren't going to succeed. But for most people, they need structure, right? We need something. It's the adage of the 9-to-5 job, right? We need structure. We get up, we go to work, we punch the clock, we sit at our desk or behind the table or in the gym or whatever you're doing, and you do your duty throughout the day, and there's kind of a structure. If you worked in corporate, you would have a structure. You would have board meetings, you would have minutes, you would be taking notes, you would have isolated meetings, you would have management meetings, you would have sales meetings, et cetera, et cetera. You see the point? So for me, when I saw COVID lockdown, I looked at it as it was an opportunity, which is what we'll talk about today. When I look at guys like other podcasters that really have a sense of self-worth enough that they're willing to talk about the subjects that make people uncomfortable, or to get to know someone, or just to be transparent, balls to the wall. I am an admirer of those type of people and always have been. So when I hear this, we're locking down again, the only thing it does is make me want more freedom. And I think that that is a very empowering way to view your life. I'm not saying that you should go against the grain with everything, because some authority might have more persuasion in affecting your life in a negative way than maybe you were ready to deal with. You were ready to fight it out. So I like to take the path of not least resistance, but I like to take the path of easier resistance, because least resistance will never build muscle. If you go to the gym and you want to work out and you start lifting weights, if you just pick up a 2-pound weight and you do it every day, maybe you'll do something. But the likelihood is you won't be able to build the muscle because you need resistance. So I believe that, we need a little bit of resistance. But taking away our civil liberties and our freedoms, that's a hard pill for Rob Everest to swallow. And I do believe that I'm not alone. So thank you so much for locking us all down again. Now we can shift into what we can get that's great out of the lockdown. And this episode, we're going to talk about the 5 easy things that you can do to save your business during COVID. So let's get right into it. The first one is going to be a hardwire reprogramming. This sounds complicated. I will simplify it for you. It's so easy. All you have to do is, the first thing, look at this situation of COVID-19, lockdowns, stay-at-home orders, businesses not having their employees in the buildings, but at home, working remotely, educating remotely, whatever. Pick what's happening in your individual life and say, this is an opportunity, not a detriment. The first step for you, for me, for anyone that wants to overcome an obstacle, is to agree with the obstacle and look at it like it's an opportunity. So if I were to hearken this back to sales, when I was teaching direct sales, which for those of you that don't know exactly what direct sales means, in my world, direct sales was taking a product from a manufacturer, cutting out the middleman, and bringing it right to the consumer at a wholesale price. And we would do that by way of door to door. Not the kind that you're thinking of where you're going into a residential neighborhood and you're knocking on a door and you're saying, "Hi, can I sell you some things?" But it was more about commercial establishments because there were the most concentration of people. It would take a long time for a door-to-door salesman to knock on individual neighborhood doors and kind of freak some people out, right? Somebody comes knocking on your door, it's your domain, right? That's your, that's your teepee. This is your tent. This is my plot of land. I don't want anybody really here unless I've invited you. So we avoided that. But places of business, commercial establishments, retail locations, strip malls, etc., those places had a giant concentration of people and they were already out and about doing something, most of the time working. So we would take a product and teach guys how to go directly to those commercial places and sell it within a few minutes of introducing it and walking out with the money. We would do that through a variety of tools in order to get this desired result. So that was my hardcore training. But one of the fundamental things that we always said was no matter what happens in this function of learning how to become a great closer, you must look at any negative that happens to you, any objection that comes to you as a opportunity. So that might sound like a concept that you've heard, right? Tell yourself that you're going to be successful. Tell yourself. There is a giant truth when you hear mentors, teachers, motivational speakers, educational individuals that really just have a zest for wanting to help someone else to achieve more of their goals. That's a common thread. I always say in all of my teachings, I look for the common denominator so I can make my life easier. Not so much that I'm looking for the path of least, but I'm looking for the path of simple. And I think that's a big distinction. So the first step to achieving something right now during these very, very sinister times, these are times where everything that we hear, everything that we see is related to strife. Think about it. We are hearing about racial tensions. We are hearing about inequality. We are hearing about political mayhem. We are hearing about disease. Things like cancer. I mean, this is a hard, we've been living with this, how long? Still haven't tackled it. Still haven't overcome it, but it kind of fell to the wayside, right? And the only thing that we're focused on, America, the world, is this moment in time, this snapshot called coronavirus or COVID-19, which will pass at some point. It won't last forever. It didn't last in the Spanish flu. It didn't last in the Black Plague. Eventually, it does pass, as everything does. So because I know that I'm in this position, because I know that I have the social media, the media outlets, the newspapers, my friends, my colleagues, all war storying about this subject of the dreaded COVID-19, let's acknowledge that that's where we are. And now let's shift into looking for an opportunity. How do we find an opportunity? That doesn't make you an opportunist, right? Of course not. It makes you someone that seeks to thrive. So let's go to human nature so we can get to the fundamentals of what I mean by that. Our whole journey is about survival. It is not about defeat. That's not our journey. Some of us have a lot of defeat. Some of us maybe accepted defeat early on. Some of us not only accepted defeat, but we threw in the towel. Like that ringside guy that's holding the white towel in his hand and he's waiting to just throw it in for the fighter that's getting the daylights beat out of him. Some of us do that. But the idea of you as a biological being is to survive, to recreate, to continue your species. So because we have this already built into our structured biological DNA, that primal mind, the lizard brain, whatever analogy you've probably heard along the way, we really do have that. In times of stress, sometimes those primal moments come out, right? We've been dumbed down as a society, okay? When we have on-demand food, we don't have to hunt. When we have apps that we can swipe left or right so we can get a little action with somebody of an attraction that we have, it can happen pretty much instantaneously. We live in a prime that package now world. That's the world we live in. So we've removed a tremendous amount of action to survive. It's become easy. It's one of the reasons that experts point to, for instance, something like obesity, which we can talk about in another time, in another episode. But one of the factors, not all, some people biologically different and they have thyroid issues and they have hormonal problems and, they have things that need to be worked out, healed, which I believe there's a healing for everything, and it doesn't necessarily mean the God that we call the doctor, okay? But obesity could be also part of the fact that we have it on demand. There is no, I have to run through the jungle, without shoes, by the way, without, really slick new Jordans or whatever's on the market right now. That's the hottest, newest thing that's going to make us run faster and better endurance, and we can, with a spring in our step. There was a time when we didn't have that, and there were people out there strapping leaves to the bottom of their feet. So they had struggles that were built into their activity to survive. They had to hunt for an animal or pick a tree or find a plant or a berry plant, constantly searching for survival. They didn't have a refrigerator stocked with food. They didn't have hot dogs on demand. So they couldn't just take away all of that energy back then. Now we can sit on our couch and we can live like in that movie Idiocracy, where in the future, people are sitting on the toilet while they're watching TV, because they're not doing anything else. So when I hear the term COVID-19, right away, the first moment that name hit our shores, I went into opportunity mode. And I'm not the only one. There was a lot. So let's talk about it. The first thing we have to do, step one, look at the situation like an opportunity. No matter, even if it looks the most dire. This is the most dire situation. Everything is falling apart. Can you find a way to just look for that opportunity? Can you find a way to do that? Is that possible that you can even just say those words? This is an opportunity, because that's the first step. Once you do that, you allow things to come in. You allow ideas. You allow things to become refreshed. You allow a sense of energy that everything is based on. Everything from the thoughts that you have to the technology that we're using right now. It is all based on energy. Without electricity, you couldn't hear me right now. That's energy. Without the thoughts in my head, I couldn't speak. The energy is creating those thoughts. It's allowing me to send a sound wave, an energy wave out to you for you to hear it. So the first thing is to look at this first and foremost, like this is an energy and I see an opportunity in the dismay. How many times have you in your personal life answered for yourself, had a moment where you turned a negative into a positive? Or How about this? You allowed life to show you in hindsight that that bad thing that happened to you was really a good thing. Raise your hand. If you believe that that's happened to you, or if you acknowledge that that's happened to you, or you're transparent, raise your hand for yourself. Even if you're sitting with your loved ones or you're sitting by yourself, raise your hand and say, that's happened to me, where I've literally said, wow, I can't believe I exited that relationship. It was the worst time of my life. I thought I was going to fall off a cliff, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. If you have found yourself saying just that alone, then you have tasted the first step of how to save your business during COVID, your relationship, during the troubled times, yourself, from a life of not having what you want to a life of absolutely having what you want and constantly creating more of what you want. The first step has to be in reverse. Don't let life dictate to you in hindsight that that was the best thing that ever happened. Tell yourself first it's the best thing that ever happened and let that part unfold. So the first step, if you have your pencil, is to look at this situation like it is an opportunity. And we can expand on those, each individual ones. They are applicable to not just a business. Let's talk about a relationship. If you were to look at your relationship with whomever, wife, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, friend, boss, cousin, doesn't matter, pastor, I don't care what the personal relationship is. It's a relationship. If that relationship was suffering, was in denial, had a fear factor, that relationship was falling below the level of where it was once, or it's not flourishing the way you think it should, then rewriting that opportunity like the day you met them is going to either push them further away from you, in which case it allows you to be open to something else that you receive, or it's going to bring them closer to you. Every relationship on planet Earth doesn't necessarily mean it's the right one. Sometimes we do make choices based on spontaneous actions or carnal desire or a fear of being alone or control issues to be in a relationship. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the healthiest one. But if you're in a relationship that you value, if you're in a relationship that you care about, if you're in a relationship that you love, or that you at one time loved, then you could easily rewrite how you looked at that relationship. Because what happens with a lot of people that have troubled relationships of any type. I mean, you hear them on the radio, they do prank calls, they do second date updates on certain, radio stations. And if you just listen to it, there's always a little degree of, there are people out there that don't want to lose it. Oh, I wonder if he's cheating on me. I hope he's not. God, she yells at me all the time and I just don't want it like that. Well, if you want to still be in that relationship, then the first step is to look at the relationship the way you did when you began it. It was a fresh opportunity. Let's go back to the corporate. Let's go back to your business that could be failing. Or maybe it's just status quo and you want it to be higher. You want to elevate your business to a higher level. The first step is to go back to the day when you told your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, when you told your colleague, when you were in that college class and you turned to your college mate and you said, man, I want to do this thing. Do you remember that excitement, that enthusiasm, that vigor? And guess what? The undeniable, there's an opportunity in front of me. That's where we have to go first and foremost if we are to succeed in the heaviest of times, because these are heavy times. But we together can make these times light, we can make them energetic, and we can get the most out of them, and sometimes even more, believe it or not, than we would have had we not had this window of opportunity to do these steps, because COVID allowed us that opportunity. That's the thinking. The second step, in my opinion, and I like to give you the opportunity to develop yourself from your personal lens. Your lens. Your experiences will help you if all of them become an opportunity for help, if all of them become an opportunity for more empowerment, if all of them become something that you want, not that you don't want. No one wants an ugly relationship. I don't think so, unless you enjoy the debate, and those relationships usually end up fizzling away anyway. They just do. It's like the leader theory. There's attributes of a leader that can be great and can be detrimental, and when you pick one of those sides, you usually end up with the same result. A leader that leads by example has endurance. A leader that leads by force eventually fails. And we've seen that through some of the most forceful leaders in our history that have taken countries and taken opportunities by force. They almost always, inevitably, fail. The second step for my opinion, and our business that we're going to try to elevate or save is I want you to think about your business beyond the original idea of how it was structured. So let's back up a second. I have a business. Pick anything. I am a shoe fixer. I fix shoes. I have a shoe shop. It's a hard work. This is hard work. And I can guarantee you that this would be dramatically affected by closure. If you were a person that was a shoe repairman, hunched over at one of these steel contraptions that sticks inside of a shoe, hammering soles in, putting things through the wash, cleaning them with chemicals, taking the shoelaces off, removing the insides, fixing rubber, gluing, doing. This is a tough job for anyone. Some people love it, but for some people, that's the kind of job that you could tell that person's really working to the bone. Imagine COVID comes along and just wipes you out. It takes away your opportunity. Where are you going? Everybody's afraid to come to your store. You're under lockdown orders. You have no money in the bank because rent's going to come due. You have to pay your bills. You still have to survive. So now where are you? You are at this point where you're sinking. But if we could look at our business, even our shoe business, our shoe repair business, as if it were an opportunity first, this is happening. Because a lot of times, like an artist, if you ever painted, anybody out there that's an artist, try to reach into when you paint. Have we ever painted a picture? Or if you're a novelist, have you ever written a page or two? Or if you're an orator, have you ever spoken a few times? But then you went back and you looked at that, or you stopped painting, you got tired, you went for a sandwich, you went outside, you went to get a bite to eat, you came back, and when you looked at the painting, you had a distance between you and the painting. Before, you were right up on it, and you were just painting away, right up against the canvas, or you were drawing, or you were writing that musical composition, or you were, organizing your files, or you were reading that law manual, whatever. If you left it, and you came back to it, you would see things very differently than you did when you were in it. If you were painting, you would see the lines that didn't look straight. You would see the strokes that maybe needed a little more work. You would be able to see how well you're doing. So COVID was this fantastic, amazing, immense opportunity for us to be able to take a step away from our painting. That's great. That's phenomenal. That's something that everybody should get. It's called a vacation. I mean, that's what it is. We go on vacation, but most of the time, people in America, maybe not so much Europe. I don't live in Europe. I was born and raised in America, so the American values are sort of built into me. I have traveled extensively throughout Europe, but the American value of hustle, 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 hustle has been sort of bred into my, way of life. So I can't speak for them. But when I would go on vacation, I was still thinking about everything I had to do in business, or everything I had to do in my family life, or every responsibility. I don't remember being capable of literally releasing myself to absolute nothingness so that I could have a moment of quiet to be able to see everything more clearly. COVID did that for a lot of people. A lot. Not only did we get reconnected with people that we never did, if you didn't homeschool your children, you finally got an opportunity to spend the time that when you leave this life, or they leave this life, you will have regretted every second that you didn't spend with them. If you have discord in your relationships, then this was a time for healing. Some people, they took it the other way, naturally. There were always bad actors in everything. Some people said, geez, I can't believe I got to stay here all day with them. Well, that's not a healthy way to look at your family and your life. And so maybe if you're unsatisfied, which is why you would make a statement like that, then we need to find a way to become satisfied again so that you would start adoring the time that you spent with your family and your friends that you haven't seen. Because before COVID, you were stuck in an office in a building somewhere under artificial light for 9 hours a day, 2 hours of commute, and you didn't have time to spend that moment with whomever and develop a bond and a relationship and something that was more valued than money itself in the end. But now you did. Now you had that opportunity. And I have had countless entrepreneurs, artists, actors that came to me during COVID and said, how do I cope with this thing? And I said, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to you. You finally got a chance to be free. No one is throwing you out of your apartment. Remember, guys, we had some government help. A lot of you are going to gripe and you're going to complain, but I didn't get enough. They only sent me $1,000 a week while I sat on my tuchus and, threw bonbons in my mouth if they were in stock because everybody was panic buying. But still, you got financial help. Your landlords told you, you don't have to pay me rent. And if they did tell you have to pay rent, you knew you had some recourse. You were sent home. You didn't have to go to that stuffy office with the circulating air conditioning that was constantly making you sick 3 times a year without COVID. You didn't have to sit under that artificial light and bite your nails staring at the clock all day, wondering when is this bell going to ring in my head that I can go home and get away from this? Or if you were running a business, you didn't have all that pressure. The pressure, there's a lot of pressure running a business. For those of you that are entrepreneurs and run a business, which is the subject of this particular episode, it's hard work, but it could be smart work if you do it right. But you still need the operations manual. You still need to wake up. You still need to do the things that you need to do, make your orders, answer your emails, move forward, whatever you do in your life, whatever that career is. If you're a lawyer, you still need to read those lawsuits or create those or legalese or write a contract. You still need to do those things. So if we can pull ourselves into the opportunity zone, we can start looking at, hey, wait a second. When I first started my business, I was excited about it. That's step 1. Opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. Step 2 is, can I look at my business in another way? Let's go back to the shoe example. The shoe repair guy would be devastated by COVID. How do I know that? I have a dear shoe repair man that I've been using for a decade, and I went to visit him during one of our lockdowns. The door was closed. The door was closed. It was locked. There was nothing on the door. There wasn't a telephone number to call him and say, hey, buddy, listen, you want to just kind of do my shoes on the side? Do you mind? So what could he do that would become an opportunity? Can you think of some? Just off the top of my head, I can already become an opportunist for the right reasons. What if he's a super skilled shoe repair man? How many of us have spilled something on suede shoes or leather shoes or something, and it was the dreaded, oh no, look at this. I just got these, or I can't believe it. I'll never be able to get that stain out. Guess what? You normally would go to the shoe repair guy. He always found a way, most of the time, to return to you a brand new looking pair of shoes. Why you go to him? Well, he's not in his store, but where he is capable through technology, through the opportunity of communicating directly with you and perhaps starting a podcast just like this right now. Just like this right now. Levi, grab that. Just like this right now. Swipe it, swipe it. Just like this right now. He is capable of starting something from opportunity. What if it was something as simple as he didn't want to be online. He doesn't have the technology savvy. He doesn't have a nice camera. He doesn't have a computer with a camera. Whatever his circumstances. Could there be another way? Well, yeah, there could. What if he put up one ad on something like Craigslist and he said, hey, I can do shoe repair, pick up, and drop off. Because he's allowed to be in his own environment, working on whatever he wants. No one's going to come and tell him, you're not allowed to shine a shoe in your house while he's in lockdown, while he's dealing with COVID-19 and the woes that all of us are experiencing. But what he's doing is he's finding opportunity. And now only 5 people in a week's time call, Alonzo, and they say, Alonzo, I found your ad. It's funny. This is the time where I'm looking at my shoes. Man, I never had a moment to stop to even take care of myself. I was busy all the time, but now I'm kind of staring at my shoes and I'm like, I really should fix these. I really like them. And who really wants to go out and spend during a time when actually making and saving is much more precedent? Who wants to do that? Right? You don't want to do that. So instead of that, he finds the opportunity. 5 people call him. 2 of them see his opportunity. They give him the shoes. He picks them up. He takes them home. In 5 or 6 days, he only made $100 or $200. It was $200 more than he had. But guess what else? Guess what's the most valuable thing, that the most biggest commodity that he achieved in that simple example? What is the biggest commodity? He gained 2 potential customers. For when life does return to a quasi-normal situation, he's there. He's there, but he's better. We already know that when the lockdowns ended, everybody rushed. They rushed into different places. Oh, I want to get my hair done. I want to get my nails done. I want to... Some of those people saw opportunity before anybody told us to put a nail salon outside. Think about that. How many of you went to go get your nails done? How many ladies or your wives went to go get your nails done and you were devastated for months? Your nails were starting to look like the witch from the Wizard of Oz. I could tell you, I know, my wife, that's how she was. I can't take it anymore, she would say. I can't believe I have to learn to do my own nails. Ooh. But you know what the point is? Even though, yes, you have to learn to do your own nails in that period, that's not the issue. That's a great self-reliance technique. How fantastic is that? That you actually have to learn to do your own nails, maybe even do them as well as somebody else that you went to go pay money to. But when that salon opened, she rushed right to the salon to get her nails done. But let's back up. Before they reopened, that nail salon, unbeknownst to my wife, unbeknownst to a lot of people, they got smart. They saw step number 2, opportunity in tragedy. They said, everybody's shut down. You're not allowed to have clients indoors. This wasn't a government movement, by the way. This was a people movement first. And the governments and the local authorities and the municipalities saw that this opportunity was legitimate. How could they fight you about coronavirus? How could they say no if you're obliging to what they told you? Don't have customers in your store. Okay, I didn't. So I put them outside. And that's what some of these places that took opportunity and ran with it. Here's a great example. I was doing an interview. We're doing a documentary. Aside of this, I pursue my dreams. Believe it or not, my dream is not only to help to empower those that I think if we can all together become empowered, autonomous individuals with a sense of worth that allows us to become super conscious people, not super conscious. I'm talking about the super conscious, where we're using that expansive part. We would never be victims. We would never be racists. We would never have problems with others because we would have that sort of almost, larger than life feeling about ourselves without ego. It's a strong one. I always talk about ego. And we would look at life through a much more optimistic glass and therefore eliminate a ton of our negatives, right? But I'm making a film. It happens to be a film that's very delicate, and it talks about the year 2020. It's a documentary. It will be on one of the networks. I cannot tell you the name, but I can assure you it's on one of the networks. This documentary was born out of an opportunity. It was born out of an opportunity that was a tragedy. That's what this was born out of. It's a dream of mine, but born out of not necessity, not desperation, not fear, but a hunger to have more. Right? There's a famous line. It'll come to me who it is because I absorb some things and I don't always remember exactly who said it, but I like to take it in, and it's stay hungry. It's a great, simple terminology for your life. Stay hungry could mean a variety of things. On the nutritional side, staying hungry has actually been linked to longevity. Isn't that funny how you can have these dualities, right? They don't seem interconnected, but they are. You could say that same application. Stay hungry in my life, meaning I thirst for more, I want more, teach me, I want to learn, I will learn, I need, I'm going, I am up, forward thinking, tomorrow is another day, I'm not giving up, I'm determined. Use all the synonyms you want. But you could also say that staying hungry is linked to a longer lifespan because caloric reduction, which is staying hungry, leaving the table hungry, is linked to longevity. At least that's what the current science has been understanding more and more as of the last decade. So looking at this like it's an opportunity and then trying to find something outside of your narrow-minded view. If you were a shoemaker and all you knew was shoemaking, shoe fixing, then you may have a difficult time at some capacity looking past that. And what I'm saying is for you to save your business or thrive in a time of woe, let's find a way for that opportunity to become manifest. The way you do that is just simply by saying, this is an opportunity and I'm going to do something different than I started it. If you started as a deli owner, here's a great example. Have you ever heard of a ghost kitchen? Some of you probably don't even know what a ghost kitchen is. Pardon me. Some of you probably don't even know what a ghost kitchen is. For those of you that don't know what it is, some of your favorite restaurants before COVID and kind of during COVID, they really expanded on this. You used to order on Postmates or Grubhub or one of these services that's very much like Uber or Uber Eats or Amazon used to have one. These services pick up from the restaurant, they deliver right to you. Nothing new. You used to order from a restaurant. The restaurant used to send his personal delivery driver directly to you and you'd get your food. When COVID happened and lockdowns happened, this became much more prevalent to order food in, right? You don't want to go stand in line at a restaurant keeping 6-foot distance from somebody else, wearing a mask, waiting for something. What if the inclement weather was there? What if it's too hot? What if it's too cold? All the what ifs that make it just, oh man, I don't want to do this. I just want to order something. Well, guess what? That in itself was an opportunity during times of need. But where it became a gross opportunity, not gross as in, oh, disgusting. No, a gross, a massive, a larger opportunity was when someone saw the tragedy of these restaurants shuttering their doors closed because they could not keep up with those expensive rents. They could not keep the furlough pay that they had to give somebody. They still had to borrow money from the government, which they have to pay back. There's still interest on it, especially if they got SBA loans. Those are loans they have to pay back. Not everything was forgiven. There's a lot of misnomers. So what happened was somebody saw an opportunity in this. He said, what if I put more restaurants that you know? Let's say you go to the local Joe's Pizza shop, right? You love Joe's Pizza. It's amazing. Joe, the old guy from New York, is in there all the time. He's like, hey, how you doing? Hey, Sally. Hey, Margaret. How you doing? Oh, yeah. Come on in. I'll make you a pie. I know I'm from Los Angeles and I kind of lost my accent, but I can still make a damn good pizza. And you love his pizza. You love it. But now Joe is facing the same dilemma as all of these other places. Somebody let Joe in on a little secret. Hey, Joe, you don't have to worry about people not wanting to come to your store or sending your delivery driver out. You've got this service. Yeah, but, I'm still all the way over here. And this service, it likes to aggregate places that are local. It doesn't want to send you a meal that's going to take 3 hours, right? It's like Uber. I'll be there in 5 minutes and then I take you to your destination. That's what that in-demand world is. Well, somebody saw an opportunity and they said, if I take multiple kitchens, I can take the famous restaurants that those are. Joe's Pizza, you pick the restaurant, whatever feels good for you, that you know. And I'm going to give them an opportunity to rent a kitchen in this building that has 20 kitchens, little ones. You can still make the same pizza, Joe. It's just not going to be in your high, expensive rent that you can't even keep the doors open because they just shut you down. You're not allowed in there because customers will show up, and well, that's the whole violation of the tenet of the rules of COVID. So there was an opportunity created from a tragedy. And guess what? That opportunity, it didn't just affect people in a positive way. It affected people in a massively positive way. I have a friend that runs a restaurant here locally to where I live. He owns a small little restaurant. I went in maybe 2-3 months ago. I think it was right after they released, whatever, it was 2 months ago, right after they said, okay, guys, you can open up. No indoor seating, only outdoor seating. I went in and I saw him. His name is John. I said, John, how's it going, man? Were you closed? He said, it was a little bit weird at first, but then, I just hung in there. And I said, what about ghost kitchens? And he responded with a gleam in his eye. Yeah, man. I mean, we're not renting a ghost kitchen because I own my own kitchen, but what I did, Rob, was I created 20 different brands. 20 different brands in the same kitchen. What does that mean? If he sold a burger with truffle mushrooms, he made a burger with truffle mushrooms and Swiss cheese. If he sold a burger with truffle mushrooms and Swiss cheese, he made a burger with jalapenos. He put the one with jalapenos on Big Boy's spicy dig-out burgers, and he put the one with truffle mushrooms on I'm a snot-nosed burger lover. Okay? And he put both of those menus up on the same service, creating opportunity from tragedy. He didn't have that idea, ironically, before he was not capable of having a moment of silence, a vacation long enough to be able to realize his opportunity. He was in it. And when you're in it, it's very difficult to take the blinders off, like the horse at the racetrack. They wear blinders for a reason. It's so they don't look to the left and they don't look to the right. And it is a philosophy that I stand by. And so here I am juxtaposed to something that I'm so believed in. I believe in putting the blinders on, like the horse at the racetrack, to get what you want in life. You want the finish line. Doesn't matter the horse to the right or to the left of you. All that matters is the destination. However, if the track is shut down and the horse is sitting in a stable, the horse needs to get out and exercise a little bit. But it's not racing. It's just taking it easy and keeping its respiration, limbs, body fluid. That gives that horse time to recover, so the next race, they come back stronger. So that's what number 2 is. Expand outside of the way you perceived your business. If your business was X, think of it as Y. If your business was Y, think of it as X. If you can add something that you've always dreamed to add to it, now's the time to do it, because now's the time for you to try something and not worrying about the failure. There's a lot of times we put this restriction on us. We are so convinced that failure might come that we preserve ourselves so much, we insulate ourselves so much that we never grow. You know, Jeff Bezos said it best. He said, sometimes people, they come to me and they go, wow, man, that was awesome. You had a killer quarter. Maybe I'm taking slightly out of context, but you get the point. You had a killer quarter because, you know, when he has a killer quarter, you know, his net worth goes up 28 billion. And he looks at them and he says, that quarter that you're telling me was great, that was baked 5 years ago. So he's always thinking about the future opportunity. But he doesn't just stop there. There's a reason why that man has amassed the largest wealth in the world and why he has affected billions of people worldwide through a single company, just like Apple did. It's because he had a vision and he was willing to do something that he states you must be willing to do. He was willing to take risk. He was willing to think outside of his original, I'm going to sell books concept. And now he's the everything store. 60 to 70% of every internet sale that ever happens online happens through Amazon. And it runs the largest cloud computing in the world, which, by the way, fuels your technology ability, not just 5G. The third step is using something that I have learned to fall in love with. This is something that if you can learn to fall in love with this, you will never go hungry. You will never have an experience in your life where you will never get what you want. You will always be able to get what you want at any cost, at any time, forever. And it's something called the law of averages. Now, some of you may have been researching this or seen it in the echo chamber of the internet. I am here to tell you that the naysayers and the fact checkers, which, by the way, can I make a legitimate statement here? Who's checking the fact checkers' facts? That's what I want to know. And who elected fact checkers as the aficionado of any facts? The only facts are the facts that I perceive, because perception is reality. It should be that way for you too. The law of averages is something that some people poo-poo. Oh, it's not really a science. That's just not true. But we've heard it throughout our life in so many ways. Here's one. If you throw enough shit against the wall, some of it's got to stick. Have you ever heard that in your life? If you throw enough shit against the wall. When I used to hear that as a kid, I was like, I don't want to throw shit at the wall. What do you mean? Why would I defecate on the wall? Who wants to do that? It's disgusting. And I didn't really get it. As a child, I didn't get it. If you throw enough stuff, it starts to make you feel like, well, then I guess my ideas are not that good if I have to just throw 1 million of them at the wall for one of them to make sense. Yeah. Thomas Edison had 1,000 inventions, but only a few of them transformed the world. So the law of averages, or LOA, I will use that throughout our experiences together as I share how to conquer this world from within and then without with you. LOA, the acronym, is Law of Averages. That means a simple thing. If I do something enough times, there will be a percentage of result this way, a percentage of result this way, and a percentage of result this way. For instance, in direct sales, I will always hearken back to direct sales. It is what is the fundamental basis of my knowledge. So direct sales, when I was teaching guys how to go door to door, an extraordinarily grueling, brutal world to live in, by the way. Just so you know, that's a hell of a door to open somebody that you don't know and walk in and try to get the money in 5 minutes and make an exchange. That is one of the hardest things I think any human being can do. I think it's harder to do that than to get on stage in front of 1,000 people live. Because you're doing a one-on-one interaction with somebody you do not know. And that's scary for a lot of people. But I will always talk about the law of averages because it is the one science that can help you with everything. And here's how it works. If you and I sat at this desk and we flipped a coin 10 times, the likelihood of it coming up one side every time would be like 1,000 to 1. Now, it could happen, but it's a really small percentage that result will happen because the probability is a 50-50 probability when you flip a coin. One side is head, one side is tails. That's 50-50. There's no way you could predict one side every single time if we did it 10 times. If I did it 1,000 times, it might come up head 700, tails 300, 600, 400. If we just did it 10 times, it might come up head 7, tails 3, 6, 4, 8, 2, 9, 1. The other way, it might come up 9 heads, 1 tails. Casinos make money on this concept. If 100 people play blackjack and it looks like the house is losing money because 70 of those people win and 30 of them lose, be rest assured, the likelihood is that if 1,000 people play, 700 lose, 300 win. So the law of averages is a concept that if I do something enough times, looking for a specific result, not the insanity quote, That's a quote by Albert Einstein, I think, that he made that quote. And I still wonder if that actually came from him or that was echoed in some other way. But he would say or someone would say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about bashing your head against the wall and the only time that it feels good is when you stop. What I'm referring to is the mechanics of getting something. If I saw 100 people in the course of a day in direct sales, 70 of them would say no, and I automatically knew that. If you were someone that was on YouTube, right? We all have some people that we love on YouTube, and then we have some people we just turn it off, right? Because not everyone is going to pick up on everyone else's stuff. That's just the way it is. But what it really means is that there's a large percentage that probably won't, but that means that there's still a percentage left, right? If I saw 100 people and 70 of those people said no to whatever it is I was offering to them, that still left 30 people from 100. From those 30 people, 20, 25, they might say, geez, I'm not so sure. And then there are other tools, which we will learn over time, that actually can make your law of averages work better in your favor. But for now, let's say you know nothing. You don't know anything about the law of averages. You just know that there's this crazy guy who's explaining that if I do something enough times, I will get a result at some point. 30 people in my day of direct sales would say, geez, what do you got? I'm not sure. And 5 to 8 of them would buy the product every single day. Do you know when they wouldn't buy it? When I stopped believing that the law of averages was real. So what I used to do was there was a technique for me. I used to take a roll of 100 pennies with me when I was training or when I was out in the field by myself when I first started. Those 100 pennies represented a person. And every time I walked into a door and I got a no, a negative result, it's not going to happen, I'm not going to make the sale, I would leave the door and I would flick a penny. Yes, I know I was wasting money, but it was only $1. Calm down. I would flick a penny off of my roll because it allowed me to know that at some point I'm going to get a yes and I'm not going to flick the penny. And then I'm going to get maybe a no again. You know, it's like think of your life as a 3-speed transmission, right? You don't start off in third. You don't start off in second. You start off in first. You move into second. You move into third. Sometimes you have to downshift. Sometimes you have to back up shift. But you don't start in third. So if I looked at my day like I'm going to do this in shifts, it might be that I get all my yeses in the beginning. That means my roll of pennies, I don't flick any of them off for the first 2 hours. Wow, this is amazing. This is incredible. I got a yes and another yes and another yes and another yes and another yes. But my law of averages still exists. Just because I got the yeses, it still exists. I'm going to get no's. I understand that. I am going to throw things against that wall and not all of it is going to stick. I am going to put up 100 YouTube videos and 20 of them are going to be loved and some of them are not. I am going to look for more cases in my law practice and I'm going to find some and some I'm not. I'm going to meet with a client who I'm trying to sell something to, and I might be able to sell him, and sometimes I won't. But if I know for sure that my law of averages dictates a science, that if I do it the same way every time, the same energy, the same charisma, the same chutzpah, the same desire, the same understanding that I can go beyond, the same opportunity thinking, I can make that law of averages work for me, even though rejection is a larger part of it. Watch for an actor. Here's how it is. When I first came here, I hit the bricks running as an actor. This is a great example. I was on fire, okay? I won't tell you the movie. One day, when we get to know each other a little bit better, I'll let you watch a couple of clips of it. I hit the ground running. Fire underneath me that was burning so bright that I didn't know how to contain myself, okay? I didn't know how to contain myself. But I got into a movie right away. That had a negative effect on me. Do you know why? Because I didn't know that I could apply my own law of averages that I would teach a corporate, Fortune 500 outfit how to get their sales up, or I could teach this guy that was in my direct sales group how to go door to door and get the result that he needed. But when it came to this self thing, this actor dream that I always had, this dream of becoming someone better on film and entertainment and comedy and drama and sci-fi and all these things were rolling in my mind, I didn't know to use the law of averages. So what happened was I got off the plane, I met an agent, the agent took a liking to me, and within weeks of me landing in this town, I was already in a major motion picture in another country, they put me in the union, they paid for my hotel. It was like carte blanche. So what's the first thing that typically goes through a mind when something positive happens to you? Right away, you get a little cocky. At least I think so. We all do. If we glance at someone walking down the street and they're really attractive and we're single, because I don't condone anything less. We're single and we look at them and they look back at us and they smile, it empowers you. If they come over and if you're a guy, because it's much easier for a man, I think, it's much easier for a woman to be able to walk up to a guy, not easy to tell them, but walk up to him and say, hey, I'm attracted to you. And for the guy to be like, oh, I'm a total puppy, here I am, then it really is the other way around. Because more men probably are seeking out women. Men want what they want from women, and they want the carnal and they want the desire, and women I believe, just from my experience with my own wife, they want something a little more grounded. Not everyone, but, I think you guys are smarter than most men. That's really what that comes down to. But we would feel really good if that person walked up to us. Imagine that. All we did was glance at them when they walked up to us and said, let's go, me and you right now. I'm out of here. You would feel empowered. Well, that's what happened to me. Got off the plane, met an agent. Within weeks, I was in a major motion picture in another country, shooting with famous people. And when I was done, I was going on auditions, and I wasn't getting roles. Which means I was forgetting that the law of averages existed. And instead of being proactive with the own knowledge base that I had, I denied myself and I said, well, then I guess that must have been a fluke. Maybe I'll never get this again. I can't believe that happened so fast. Why isn't it happening now? Why am I still having to audition? Which was a detriment to the way of thinking. If we use the law of averages, if I had someone to remind me, hey, Rob, just because you got the yes in the beginning of the day, just because you got on that movie right in the beginning, it doesn't mean you're still not going to experience the other part of the law of averages. So if we use the law of averages as a tool in our coming up from this tragedy of COVID-19, if we say, you know what, yeah, I see this new opportunity, and I'm going to hit it with dogged determination, because even if it fails, it's okay, because I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep putting out that ad. What you choose, whatever it is you do. I'm going to keep creating a better product. I'm going to focus more on what the customer needs. Before, I couldn't even think about the customer. I was so busy trying to fulfill orders. Now I'm dead in the door, and I don't know what to do. You know what? I'm going to look back on all the negatives that I got in my business from every customer that didn't like something. I'm going to find a way to make it better so that when I reintroduce it, I retain more of them. Doing that repetition will equal a success point at a percentage. That's the law of averages. That's why casinos make the money that they do. That's why it exists. That's why the terminology from when you were a child was throw enough shit against the wall and it will stick. It is true. Now, if you are bashing your head and you've been searching for, the Loch Ness Monster, and you are determined, I am going to find the Loch Ness Monster, and you're at it for 4 years, then you might be insane. You might be. You just might be, because you're not using the law of averages. You're blinded by a singular way of thinking. And I've always talked about that, right? We don't just always have to you have to focus on what you want, but you have to be able to see the road in front of you, right? Yes, you can get to New York from California in the nighttime by only looking at the few hundred feet ahead of your headlights. Or you can look at the guidance system that's showing you also where all the stops are along the way. You're looking at it from a broader view in order to make your journey easier on the road. So that third step, using the law of averages, it could apply to a relationship. So many people say, I go on these dating apps. I have a dear friend of mine. She's a wonderful, wonderful person, an accomplished artist. We're going to bring her on the show. She is an incredible person, an accomplished artist. She's gorgeous. She's a beautiful physical person. She's a beautiful spiritual person. But she finds herself on these apps, swiping. I swear to God, I feel like we're in an economics class. Economics. It's like a drone in my head. Get it out of my head. How could you live like this? Swipe. Swipe. And she would swipe. Nothing was doing it. Then she would find someone, and they would make a connection, and the guy would become a douchebag. Or he was just after sex. Or, maybe she shouldn't have been on, that app where, it's pretty much just trying to hook up. But I would say to her, okay, so Amber, tell me, when you are on this and you're swiping, are you just swiping mindlessly? Are you just using your law of averages because you think that something outside of you is gonna make it? Or are you looking at each of these people and deciding, like I would walk into a door, like I would pitch someone one after another, after another, after another? I could just walk by the door. I could walk by the door and look into the glass, and I could have said, I don't know if I want to go in that door. Or I could walk in. Doesn't matter if I get a yes or a no. My law of averages says I'm going to get a few yeses. That's my success point. I don't need 100%, right? How many times have we heard 10% of something is better than 100% of nothing? Well, that's kind of the law of averages. So Amber would always woe to me. Oh, Rob, it's like I can't find anybody. And I would say, so why don't you keep going on these dates? Oh, because they're just, I've been on 2 and they're creepy guys. I'm like, well, first of all, maybe you shouldn't be looking in this place. Maybe we should apply that law of averages to something else. But okay, this is your desire. You want to be there out of convenience. Fine. That's your prerogative. So let's make the best of it. On those apps, there's probably millions, by the way, of people. Not just 10 or 20 or 50. There's millions on these, get-together apps, hookup apps. So if she's swiping, I told her, let's try to do something different. Let's swipe differently. Let's swipe with intention. We're going to swipe with intention, but we are going to use our law of averages. We're going to swipe until we find what we want, and then we're going to put it as a part of what we want. And out of the part of what we want, we're going to keep doing until we've built a group of them. So if the ideology would be, let's see 100 swipes, 70 of those swipes, I already know that they're not going to happen. 30 of them, I'm going to keep them on the what if list. 5 of them, I'm going to go on a date with. And most likely, 1 of them will be normal. That doesn't mean I fall in love. But guess what happened to Amber? She started to do this, and the dates became better. She went on more dates. She still stayed true to the desires that she had. She said, I want something serious. So I said, stay off Grindr or whatever the hell it is, if you want something serious. But still, she persisted in the way that we discussed. She had intention. She made sure to use the law of averages. And she did not say to herself, after only a few rejections or a few bumps or a few creepy guys, this stuff doesn't work. She said, I'm using your advice, and I've been on 2 dates, and I'm really digging this. I'm going to keep going. And guess what? She has now successfully been in a relationship for over 1 year with somebody that, by all intents and purposes, I think she's going to marry. So bravo to you, Amber. When we have you on the show, hopefully you don't mind us talking about that. But using the law of averages, which we will cover again and again and again, until you yourself retain it, because repetition equals retention. Using the law of averages could enhance everything that you're doing and also insulate the fact that you don't have to worry you're going to get what you want out of this. It will happen. Step number 4, this is going to be probably the hardest one. Maybe I should have made this step number 1. But step number 4 is adopt a new inner language. If you want to survive COVID-19, if you want to survive the political climate, if you want to survive the civil unrest, then you must change not those around you, but your inner dialogue. I have a few recommendations for that inner dialogue. Change, by the way. So I believe that if we filter, like our brains do, some of the information that we want to take in, if we filter some of it, inner absorption, not outward action, but what we're hearing, seeing, listening in the distance to, reading, those kinds of absorption. If we could limit those and filter them, the first thing that we would see start to happen is we would start to pull away from a collective consciousness that is surrounding us right now. Example, you turn on the news and it's constant battering in the face about the political uneasiness, about COVID-19, about loss of jobs, about loss of friends, about loss. Everything is doom and gloom. So how do we change our inner dialogue? Besides auto-programming, Tony Robbins said it best, some maybe 20 years ago. He used to talk about something called NLP. NLP. I don't discuss NLP, but we shared, he's a much older guy than me, but we shared in my youth while I was coming up as an orator of getting what you want, he was using terms like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Do you know what that means? Simple. If I use my tongue to speak, which is very important, record this one in your mind, folks, because this one that I just told you is something that we're going to talk about in the I Am God episode. Not to be confused with religion. I always say that because it's not religion. Neuro-linguistic. Linguistic is the speaking. Programming is the recording. Neuro is the brain. Neuro-linguistic programming, all that meant was the repetition of you saying something to yourself over and over and over and over again will manifest as a truth inside of your head. Repetition equals retention. It applies broad spectrum to everything in your life, by the way. From anything that you've ever learned, you did it through repetition. Even driving to and from that job, the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day. From that first day that you went on the job, you didn't know how to get there. A year later, you're talking on the phone, chewing gum, dealing with a sandwich in your lap, traffic and lights, and you still know how to get from your job to your home, which meant you already programmed the map in. Auto-programming, neuro-linguistic programming, repetition equals retention. That is something that we must adopt if we are to cultivate our language to achieve a better result. What does that mean? Our language is the end-all, be-all of everything that we have ever created in this world. Your inner dialogue and your outer dialogue are the fundamental objects that have created, shaped, and shifted your life and destiny. Is that a hard pill to swallow? I know. It sucks, right? Who wants to hear that the thought that you have in your mind, you should have to monitor that 24/7? That's tough, right? That's tough. All right, let me give you an example. I was writing a script with my producer, who's in this room right now. We were writing a script some years ago. It was about the end of the world. And there was a civilization that we see in the beginning of this film. And they are like a utopia. They are free from judgment, free from restriction. They don't have jealousies. They don't talk to each other in a way where there's competition. It's healthy competition. It's more of a competition where you want to see your competitor succeed than you want to have one over your competitor. That's healthy competition, by the way. When you can pat your teammate on the shoulder for getting the touchdown that you didn't get, that's healthy competition. So we were writing this script, and the script was about a utopian society that was free from all of current, real, modern society's problems. We live in strife. We live with prejudice. We live in depression. We live with people that don't like us, or we live with people yelling at us, cursing at us, cutting us off on the highway. Those are things that exist in this society. So in this script, we wanted to write a script that would show people in a society that could be utopian. But let me get to the point. How did they get to that utopia? Was through one single technique. And that was reprogramming the language that they spoke. That language doesn't necessarily mean the words that I say. It doesn't always mean, hello, my name is Rob and this is my language. Sometimes it's just your thought. But if you ever notice yourself thinking about something, you think in words. Even if you think in images, they're still words. Those images have words. They're not just blank. They're not just open blobs of nothing. If you think of a pink elephant and the pink elephant is in your head, you not only think of a pink elephant in its physicality, but you also think of the word pink elephant. That is you speaking, whether it's out of my mouth or out of my head. Sometimes speaking can be with our hands, our actions, our shoulders, our mannerisms, our expressions. That's how we used to communicate before there was language. So language doesn't only mean the spoken word. It can mean the spoken word that's not heard. It's still a spoken word. To frame your language differently will require you to continuously neuro-linguistic program your mind. Repetition equals retention. For some of you, it'll come in a snap. It'll come in an easy moment where you'll say, wow, that's all it takes is for me to just literally change from, I don't think I can, to, I'm glad that exists. Or, God, in my mind, I hope this works, to, I feel really good about this. If you can find whatever works for your personal goals, but because I don't know you, I don't have you in front of me, I can't have you telling me specifically. Put them in the comments down below. I'll certainly come back to help and try to answer you. But for this purpose, I don't have you with me. So I have to share with you the metaphor of what it means. Pick what it is in your life that you do that prevents, that pushes away. The words that you say that keep you perpetually in a state of disharmony with your spouse or your friend. The things that you think that create restriction and judgment. The moment we rewrite that script, even if, I hate using this term, you're lying to yourself, I want you to lie to yourself. I want you to lie to yourself for a good purpose, for a great reason, to empower you to be the best you that you could possibly be. Even if it means convincing yourself that you are skinnier than you are, better at something than you are. Just acknowledging that you have that inner power to be able to get that will begin that journey to put it back into its place. But you must do it repetitively. So here's an exercise that I want you to try. It's very simple. I want you to take a pen and I want you to take a piece of paper that has lines on it, 20, 30, 40 lines. And I want you to pick one thing that you want in this world. Just one thing that you want for yourself, not for someone else. We all would love to help the sick. We all would love to help the population. We would love to save the world and have world peace, etc., etc., etc. But for the purposes of being able to help others, let's help ourselves first and foremost. Pick something for you. Something that you're restricted by, something that you want, something, the simplest thing. Not a cup of coffee. We've heard that a million times. Ask for a cup of coffee. No, something that you're always doing to yourself. Maybe it's not to get something. Maybe it's to stop something. I sure want to stop telling myself that I'm ugly and feeling this way. I want you to write it down. Instead of writing, I don't want to feel ugly anymore, change the dialogue. Listen carefully. Instead of I don't want to feel ugly anymore, which perpetually puts you in a state of feeling ugly, and you're always searching for the way to not feel that. Instead, I want you to say, I feel beautiful today. That's hard, right? Oh my God, if you don't like the way you look and you don't have the kind of relationships that you think you should because of that, that's going to be the hardest thing for you to do, but I want you to do it anyway. Nobody's looking. I'm not looking. I'm not at your house. Nobody's going to stare over your shoulder. And if they are, and they don't want for you what we want together in this journey, then we have to start finding a way to repair that relationship or to find our exit strategy, as I mentioned in a previous episode. But for now, I want you to write it on that first line. I feel beautiful. I am successful. Whatever it is. Maybe you don't feel successful. Maybe you want a better body. Maybe you want to work out. You have never been able to get through that stupid New Year's Eve resolution. Every year you've told yourself, every single year, I'm going to get through this resolution. And every year, like clockwork, January came and you found a way out. And by January 29th, you were already like, you know what? I missed this one. I'll get it next year. Whatever it is, find it and write it down on that one line and then put it away. And the next day, not a week, not a month, the next day I want you to take that piece of paper out and I want you to go to the line below it. And I want you to write it again. The same line. In fact, I want you to do this so much every single day that if you left a legacy and somebody found this paper, the only thing they would say was, I think they were insane. They were writing the same thing over and over again. That's what I want. I want them, those people out there that don't exist, the hoogly booglies that aren't really there, to be the one to say that in your legacy. Oh, they must have been insane because they wrote that 1,000 times. But the chances are, if you wrote that 1,000 times, you would become what's on that page because eventually you would believe it. And guess what? When the time comes for you to leave your legacy, they would find that and say, is that the insanity that got them to that success? Not they're insane. So that's one of the steps that I want you to do. I want you to rewrite that dialogue. I want you to rewrite that dialogue. However you have to, whatever that is. For the purposes of this episode, it's COVID-19, surviving it, getting ahead, making sure that all of my ducks are in a row and all of my papers are organized and, but it's about being efficient and rising up out of this woe that we're in right this second. But you can apply these techniques to the spectrum of your life, just like broad spectrum supplements or broad spectrum or full spectrum, CBD oil that was, raging all over the place, right? That word full spectrum. Your life also has a full spectrum. So it would be nice if you could utilize all of it. So the fourth step is adopt a new language. And the way to rewrite it is through auto-programming. Repetition equals retention. And we'll go into depth in subsequent episodes where we will define solely in that episode exactly how to rewrite each and every step of your negative influence. Because that's the reason for the rewriting. And in the script that we were writing together, that utopia was formed, what I didn't tell you, out of rewriting the language. But the reason they rewrote the language is because the story took place in the future, not the past. The audience thought that the story was in the past, not the future. We learned that those children that had now grown, that were free from, insult and free from opinion and free from unhealthy competition, they really were bred that way through a rewriting of their education in a good way. And guess what? They discovered that they did that to preserve humanity because the ego and language can kill you. It just can. So let's rewrite that for ourselves, just like the script. Those people did live in a utopia. Yes, it's a fantasy, but they lived in a utopia through a fundamental challenge of rewriting that script that you use every single day. And if it's for your business, it's time to break that and relive what you had when you were excited the first time you started that business. So that's step 4. Step 5 is motivate yourself and those around you. If you don't have employees, motivate yourself. If you have people that work with you, colleagues, friends, employees, I want you to learn to motivate them too. And the way you're going to do that is the simplest technique imaginable. You ready for this? I will leave you on something with simplicity. The way you're going to do that is by forgetting what you don't have. That's the way that you can motivate them. You know, if you were a football team, you would have practices, not games, all the time. You would have practices. That means you're just on the field. You're not in that big game with all those audience people that just paid all that money to see you. You're just practicing. Well, practice the same fundamentals that you did when you started your business, when there's no business. When you're locked down in COVID-19 and you haven't looked and found your opportunity yet, you haven't expanded outside, but you're going to work on that. You haven't used the law of averages. Okay, you haven't rewritten the inner dialogue yet, but you're motivated to feel that growth that you felt the day you began, the day you started the relationship with that person that you were so excited about, when you courted them and you took them out to dinner or you cooked dinner for him or for her. You had those long talks and those long walks and you got to know each other and you were just genuinely excited about it. You were motivated. You got up to go on that date when you were too tired. If you could do that same thing in your business to survive tragedy, what's going to happen is you're going to reinvigorate the purpose. And when you do that, when you reinvigorate the purpose, it's just like invoking the universe when you started. Because when you started your business, whatever it is, because remember, this class, it's about business people surviving COVID. We just happen to give you some of the, similarities and the denominators that are common with other things because these can apply to your life. But for the purposes of your business, if you could reach back to that first day you had your business, or the first day you conceived your business, you would find you had a different way of motivation. You were different. Maybe you became complacent. Maybe you made so much money, you had so much success. There's that way too, right? Everything I've been delivering is you're actually down and out. Maybe we're not going to be able to save your business. What about it's the other way? Your business is doing just fine. Do you want to make it better? Or do you want to stay at status quo? If you're happy with status quo, God bless you. Please move out of the way for someone else to come in and be able to experience how to empower their life. You were very lucky that you were able to do it with your own, without much guidance or help along the way. Kudos to you. But if you want to take that to the next level, if you want to see yourself more successful, if you want to raise the bar, if you want to I have this incredible thing now, but oh man, I want to go to the next stratosphere, then go back to the motivated you that began. Motivate those around you. Even if you have no customers, even if you have no staff, even if you have no inventory, because that's part of the programming. You see, if we believe that everything is truly energy, if you believe in even a degree of that, which I hope you do, then you will know that positive begets, most likely, positive. We've always heard it in other ways, right? Oh, the rich get richer. Now, I always found that fascinating. Do you really think that the rich get richer just because they're rich? Is that really why? Is it only because they're rich they get richer? What if they don't put their money in the bank? Do they get richer because they're rich? What if they don't invest in the stock market? Do they get rich because they're rich? What if they don't grow, but they're rich? Just because they're rich, that's it? They're going to make more? What if they're rich and everything goes to shit? Are they rich? No. So the rich get richer, yes. But they also get richer Because they are proactively searching for more. That's why. If you have $1 or you have $100 million, you are in the same exact position. The same. Because the guy with $100 million, I can teach him to fail. I can show him how to doubt all the reasons why he made it. And eventually, his mind, his superconscious, it will invoke the universe like it did when he was filled with piss and vinegar to get what he wanted, and it will take it away. For those that have, more will be given. For those that don't, more will be taken away. So if he didn't have the chutzpah, the drive, that inner fortitude, that intestinal fortitude that comes up from within like he did when he started, well, then he doesn't have more. It will be taken away. If he does have more, more will be given. So when we heard those things, the problem was whoever was teaching us these, parables and, Levi, what's the word for it? Teaching us, philosophy. Allegories, philosophies. You know what? They left valued information out. Yes, the rich get richer. And of course, sometimes it's by accident. But also, there are guys out there that are poor, guys and girls, and they won the lotto. Does it mean that they just were lucky or they stepped in poop? Or because I know guys that also lost all of it. They won it, they lost it all. Because their inner dialogue was the same inner dialogue before they won it. That's why that inner dialogue, that motivation was the same before they won the lotto. They went there going, God, I hope I win the lotto because otherwise I have nothing. Not, I have everything I want. I think I'm going to go play the lotto. I mean, how many people do you know that are like, I am so content. I think the only person I've ever met in my entire life, by the way, that says, I am so content is my producer, Levi. In fact, sometimes I kind of shake him and say, no, you're not. You're not content. No way. Life was meant to be grabbed, not just lived. Ugh, that sounds so boring. But I know so many people. How many of them are like, man, I am so wealthy. I'm so successful. I'm so rich. I've got yachts, babes, jewelry, clothes. I think I'm going to go play the lotto because I can't wait to win. No, they don't do that. It's usually the person, the personality, not all. Come on, guys. Don't judge me because I use a totality of subject. Because there's always going to be variables, of course. There's always going to be a little shades of gray in the black, a little speck of dust on your white table. So there are those examples. But for the majority, I would have to say that most of the people that go play the lotto are people that are hoping something outside of themselves pays them the big bucks, because then, and only then, they're going to be successful. Then they're really going to make it. But guess what happens? You've seen them. You've seen it on TV. The tragedies of lotto winners. Oh, that always gives my stomach. That makes my stomach have a pain in it when I hear that. Because that means that they're still using the same inner dialogue that they used before they won the lotto. So if you are a person that has great success and you want more, get back to being motivated and motivating those around you like you did when you started. If you are on the lower spectrum and you're losing to this illusion of suppression that we're living under right now, because it is an illusion, right? That goes back to the opportunity in the tragedy. If you are one of those people that are on the lower spectrum that are losing your opportunities in your mind, then it's time for you to get motivated again about the idea that you can do this. And if you're tired, I've heard that 1,000 times. I have done probably 5,000 seminars. And I have heard at least a few hundred of those times. But man, I'm tired. I'm tired. Okay. So go take a nap and come back because your life is not infinite in the one that you're living, in the real world, in the conscious right now. It's finite. And every single second, and I mean second, guys, millisecond, that you waste is a millisecond or a second closer to your end in this physical world that we see each other in right now. Not the metaphysical world, not the expanse of energy, not the where you're going to go next. Because if you're living for that, well, sorry guys, but that's not living. Let that happen when it happens. Let it unfold when it unfolds. But for now, in this one, let's stay present. And the way to stay present is by understanding that my energy, me, is going to dictate it all. And how I'm going to raise that up again to pull back in the things that I need is going to be through that step 5, which is motivating myself and those around me in this business to know that we got this just the same way we did when we first started. And what you'll find most of the time is that people will genuinely become, it's like a contagion, not a virus, contagious. When people are around motivated people, it raises their vibration of energy. It raises their level of motivation. So if you start with just you, even if you go back to that auto programming, I've got to tell myself every day, I am motivated. Even if that's just the thing that you need to do to get back on that track, then make that the thing that you write. I am motivated. I am motivated. I am motivated. Even if you're tired, you would push through. If you had a child and you were a parent and your child was hanging by a thread on the edge of a cliff and you were 3 miles away in the beating sun and he had a pair of binoculars and you could see them hanging there, holding on by dear life, and it was your child. And you didn't sleep the night before, and somebody stole your lunch. And your car had all flat tires, so you couldn't even take the car. And the sun was sweltering on you. And you didn't have a bottle of water with you. And he was 3 miles ahead, or she was 3 miles ahead in those binoculars. What would you do? Would you give up on your child, your spouse, your loved one, the person in need? Would you say, I'm so tired? Or would you do whatever it takes? DWIT. That's the acronym. Would you do whatever it takes? If the answer is the latter, then you are capable of achieving precisely what this entire episode was about. So, I want to remind us that we have the power to make, take, and have anything that we want. You can do it on your own. I can help you through the Everest effect, but know just one thing. There's only one place we're going if we believe that we are, and that's straight to the place we always dreamed ourselves to be. I am your host, Robert Everest. Thank you again for joining me, namaste, on this episode of Everest Effect, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.